Our next presenter is Emily Wilson. She is the Assistant Curator at the C.M. Russell Museum in Great Falls, Montana. She holds a Master of Arts degree in Art History from Indiana University. Wilson has worked at several museums, including the Samuel P. Harn Museum of Art in Gainesville, Florida, the Museum of Art in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and the Indiana University Art Museum in Bloomington. Most recently, she has served as the curatorial assistant in the Whitney Western Art Museum at the Buffalo Bill Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming. She has contributed to several publications, including William Blackens and Painted Journeys, The Art of John McStanley. Please help me welcome Emily Wilson.
Hello, thank you everyone for joining me. It's a tough act to follow, but I'll hope you all stay with me until lunchtime. My topic is on Charlie Russell playing Indian. And when I first came to the C.M. Russell Museum, just seeing this larger-than-life image of Charlie Russell blown up in Indian costume and his headdress beside him just fascinated me. You know, when you think of Western artists, you don't think of them creating their own objects that are sort of ethnographic-esque. And so once I saw that, and all the great little miniature gnomes that he created in Bullhead Lodge out of tree bark and twigs and moss, it really just excited me beyond belief, and I knew that this was a topic that I really had to engage in and talk about. So, I'll begin. Plains Indian culture is steeped in the materiality of things and the sensory experiences that they impart. This cultural sensibility lends itself to the philosophy and the artistic body of work of Charles Russell. As an artist, and even more so as a sculptor, Russell harbored a deep understanding of and interest in material objects. His imagination fed off of the sensations of the body, imbibed as they were through the hand, eye, and mind. In assuming his Indian identity as Ah-Wa-Cous, or running antelope, Russell is, in a sense, performing through objects. His role play becomes an embodied appreciation of culture he was drawn towards, a culture that valued the land, the wildlife, and tradition, and whose values, as such, were on display in their art, religion, and the stories they told about themselves. Within these culturally produced products, Russell found an escape from the bombardment of the modern world and the changes it wrought on the American West. He, as a sculptor, sees the landscape, molding the environment that surrounded him to create his own enchanted world, the West of Ah-Wa-Cous. So, stretching from the late 19th century to the mid-20th century, the modern period was marked by a rapid collective change in urbanization, industrialization, and social fragmentation, disrupting long-standing social and economic patterns. Known as modernity, this set of conditions became characterized between contradictions between innovation and decay, the ephemeral and the enduring, and the stable and the contingent. This new epoch ushered in a widespread philosophical loss of uncertainty that left people with a palpable sense of disillusionment and alienation as they sought a resolution between reason and faith, the natural and the supernatural, in the search for the re-enchantment of the modern world. So in the context of the American West, the separation of God, man, and nature in popular ideology resulted in the era's impersonal relationship to the natural world that almost destroyed both the Indian and the buffalo. Modernity had all but swept away the region's fabled identity, which had been mythologized in the minds of generations of Americans, beginning with the 1803 Louisiana Purchase. Those who lived through the midst of its erosion in the 19th century, with the closing of the open range, the privatization of land, the subdual of the Native American tribes, and the slaughter of wildlife, felt the loss of this identity more keenly, and many, like Russell, tried to hold on and preserve this memory of the Old West. For them, the past stood tall. It became a stopgap against the shifting, uncertain present, and a yardstick against which to measure one's beliefs, philosophies, and moral character. So rather than limit himself, Russell's embrace of the past awakened his imagination, allowing his creativity to blossom. His distaste for modern change bound him philosophically to many of his contemporaries who were engaged in what Michael Saylor has suggested was a common quest to, quote, seek the underlying essences that could restore harmony, stability, and spirituality to a modern world that appeared increasingly fragmentary, transitory, and secular, unquote. As luck would have it, Russell's quest had begun early on and found its mark in the American Indian. So Plains Indian culture, religion, and philosophy provided Russell that requisite underlying essences that anchored him to the land, the wildlife, the cosmos, and the arts. These moorings were important touchstones for Russell's thought and grounded him philosophically towards primitivism, the belief in fate, and the spiritual harmony between man and nature. Not only did he seek these by fostering friendships with Native people, like his longtime model, John Youngboy, by visiting reservations, participating in ceremonies, collecting artifacts, he also did it through his psychological engagement. So Russell's performance of Indianness, achieved through gesture, in sign talking, through costume and play acting, and through artistic representation in letters, paintings, and sculptures, offer the artist a form of escapism that allowed him to dwell in possible worlds. J.R.R. Tolkien once wrote an essay on fairy stories, and in this essay he writes, quote, enchantment produces a secondary world into which both designer and spectator can enter to their satisfaction of their senses while they're inside. But in its purity, in its artistic desire and purpose, uncorrupted, it does not seek delusion, nor bewitchment, nor dominion. It seeks enrichment and partners in making delight, not slaves, unquote. So within this idea of this framework of possible worlds, the act of playing Indian opened the door to worlds of enchantment where reason becomes beholden to the imagination. The secondary world of Charles Russell was woven into being by a desire to dwell in a more primitive world, dressed in romance and nostalgia. Here he could inhabit the various personas and identities crafted over the years. Kid Russell, the cowboy artist, Rawhide Rollins, the old-time raconteur, and Ah-Wa-Cous, or Antelope, the white Indian. While each of Russell's identities are similarly distinct, they are similarly performed through changes in speech, dialect, clothing and gesture, and in his pursuit of activities and atmosphere. But once he was inside these worlds, he created art and an enduring visual manifestation of this enchanted world. So from childhood on, Charles Marion Russell found his passion in the molding and the creation of things and of objects and art. As a child, he used to take little wax pieces off of his sister's flowers and mold them, and that's what started his father buying him balls of beeswax to carry around in his pocket. Like Byron and Holly had mentioned, Russell was able to sculpt these objects from touch alone. He would do this in his pocket. When he was rooming with Bill Rance in Great Falls, he would just be known to lie on his bed at night and just sculpt for hours until Bill told him to shut the lights off. And then he said, but every morning when the lights would go on or daylight would come on, there would be a figurine waiting for them. And so these creative tendencies for him were really attracted by the material objects and dominated by these tactile experiences. So these artistic strengths are in part what drew him to becoming a collector and a creator of ethnographic art. Russell had acquired his collection of objects through a number of means, by purchase at trading posts and specialty shops, through friends, and directly from the wearer himself. If Russell admired a piece that he was unable to acquire, then he would either borrow the work or just sketch the guy in person at a powwow. So these artifacts would hang inside the walls of Russell's log cabin studio in Great Falls, and before then, in his home or bedroom. They would substitute as decor, they would also serve as visual props for his paintings, and they were also being put to active use by the artist. Russell biographer Dan Conway describes this setup in his studio. Quote, in the corner of his studio was arranged a miniature Indian lodge, which I learned the artist had made himself. The history of the brave's life was painted on the walls of this teepee. On the floor of this little lodge lay a painted buffalo robe. To his left of the flat rested a saddle and a pipe, a backrest of peeled willows woven and hung on a tripod over which was thrown a colorful blanket. Unquote. A number of these items still remain in the C.M. Russell Studio collection in Great Falls and elsewhere. But in addition to, of course, collecting these ethnographic art, Russell created his own. These works were scaled in height in order to function as both artist props and as accessories for his own Indian costume. While modeled after traditional objects, Russell's works here were fanciful creations that emulated the style and symbolism of traditional American Indian works rather than copy them outright. So the studio collection has two lances of Russell's, and this one here is an image of a society lance, and its crooked shape was used as a visual means to identify a warrior's rank within a men's society. The length of the object is wrapped in otter and dog fur, and is studded to the wood and tied with thongs, and the bare center you can see there is wrapped with flannel and decorated with brass studs. It is ornamented with two feathers at the top, tied with a cloth string, and a third of the way down. So the practice of wrapping a lance in this animal fur, like that of the otter or wolf, was thought to bestow attributes such as swiftness or the power of impaling an enemy. This belief was woven into Plains Indian mythology, which spoke to man's ability to harness animal traits and transfer them into objects for the benefit of the wearer. The second lance, visible in a photograph of Russell in the role play, was modeled after those designed for hunting bison. It's around between 5 and 6 feet long, and the base of it, the iron point, was one of those that were traded by the Hudson Bay companies to the Indian trade during the 1850s and the 1860s. So because of religion and ritual were really part of this traditional warfare, warriors incorporated their own medicine into their weapons. And you can see here, I've blown up a picture of the attached at the bottom of Russell's lance is his own personal medicine, which is comprised of an eagle's claw, red yarn, a braided scalp of Russell's own horse's mane, and a white and green beaded flannel tab with arrow designs. So the lance's base is carved with geometrical figures. Here I just wanted to show you two. This is in the Gilcrease collection, this beaded vest that he wore. You can see that Walt Corbin wears it on the left and Russell on the right. And there it is again. And this is also his famous depiction of him in And I Was a Kid. So like I said, the lance is carved with these geometrical designs, including depictions of the sun, the shield, a human face reminiscent of Nappy, a figure in a headdress, Thunderbird. And in terms of symbolism, you can see that here the bear, just for an example, in Plains Indian culture, it was employed to heal the wounded and as a war medicine to enable warriors to defeat their enemies. So you can see these things have certain meanings to Russell. There's a bonneted figure on a horse with the sun, and over here you can see the figure of the sort of, it seems like Nappy or old man, and then another dancing figure. So they're kind of fun, and the carved face. And so like many of these designs that were carved into the lance, you can also see this translated into Russell's art. When you look at the designs on the shield of the Plains Indians in his paintings, as well as in his signature as running Antelope, you can see that he uses these sort of ledger-esque, rock art-esque signs and symbols to show. This unusual split horn bonnet headdress is also in our collection and was made by Russell. You can see in this little illustrated letter graphic, Russell's wearing this colored red hair, in which he dyed red from his horse's mane. Unusual in the bonnet is the fact that it is made of, like you see most bonnets today, just have singular feathers that are placed in and around. But in this case, Russell's bonnet uses the full body of an eagle that is placed, scalp and all, onto the bonnet. And he just decorates it with horsehair with beaded work. And then this, trailing fabric stick glass behind. So it's sort of more in the vein of a medicine man type of bonnet, using the full power of the eagle rather than just singular feathers. And Russell was really big into, medicine, and he really believed in the healing power of Native American arts. For example, he was known to put some rattlesnake rattles pinned to the inside of his cowboy hat to ward off headaches. In 1919, when he visited the Calgary Stampede, he went and saw a Sarcee medicine man, Big Belly, to have him pray over him and do some medicine. And he also owned his own medicine bags. One which is unlocated is a pouch that was, quote, made of the skin of an unborn buffalo calf and contained all manner of things. A small stone, an elk's tooth, a bear's claw, various roots, and whatnot. So these are all the things that Russell just gathered up and used to give himself power and protection. And you can see here, this is in our collection, it's Charlie's Eagle medicine. So this was actually a gift from one of Charlie's longtime models, John Youngboy, his brother, Buffalo Coat, who was a pre-Indian and often came to visit Russell in the studio. And so this is just a sort of an eagle medicine bag that Charlie had. Some of the conservators think that after it was used as a bag, he turned it into a turban. So you can see Russell really using these native artifacts to his use. And one last object I'll talk about is Russell's tobacco board, which you can see here is decorated with 4 incised and painted figures at the corner. The black and red buffalo, the green, blue, and red thunderbird, blue horse, and a black and white red and black coyote. Like all of Russell's ethnographic art, these figures are executed, like I said, in the style of painted hide or ledger drawings. And the indentations at the center of the board indicate that it was no mere prop and that Russell used it when he was playing Indian and hosting guests. And when he was making his pipe, he would stuff it with plug tobacco, kinnikinnick, which is a mixture of leaf and bark, and red willow bark. And then he'd cut it into the pipe and pack it. And Dan Conway, again, writes how he would follow sort of traditional Blackfoot practice. Quote, Russell lights the pipe, holds it to the earth, to the sun, and to the 4 points of the wind. Then lowering it to the ground, it is passed back in reverse order, and then down the other side. The pipe never passes the door, unquote. So here we can see that what Russell's object making to his role playing is really the process through which gestures become sedimented in the body over time through habituated and repeated use of created objects and costumes. So Russell gravitated toward Native American ideals that valued the health and integrity of the land and believed in humanity's role as a caretaker and steward rather than a conqueror and owner. In embodying Ah-Wa-Cous, Russell was able to match his physical appearance with his philosophical views. Thus, plain Indian became a means to access the spiritual from the natural environment. Lake McDonald Valley, near the northern Rocky Mountains, is a landscape that has easily lends itself to the imagination. Drawn to the area's primitive beauty and teeming wildlife, Russell bought a piece of property on Lake McDonald in 1905 where he built a cabin nicknamed Bullhead Lodge. It would become his summer home from 1906 to 1926. Nestled in a body of woods, Bullhead Lodge was both secluded and at the heart of a growing destination for outdoor tourism and travel, which saw in it the creation of Glacier National Park, which surrounds it today in 1910. Described by Russell as, quote, about as wild a place as you can find these days, unquote, Glacier's primitive landscape was attractive for its ruggedness and for its historicity as a place of great spiritual importance to the Kootenai and Blackfeet tribe. The impact that Bullhead Lodge had on the development of Charles Russell was profound. Its influence is not only superficially visible in the photographs of Russell as Ah-Wa-Cous, but deeper still, it is embedded in the artist's belief system, which wed his creative impulse and his pantheism to the landscape. So Glacier and Lake McDonald in particular is viewed by the Blackfeet as an exceptionally charged place. As one who ascribed to Blackfeet philosophy and religion, Russell also held this view and practiced accordingly. As Conway again states, quote, to this marvelous child of nature, the artist Russell, this was still the ghost country, and here too he went to make medicine. Here he sought and found favor of the Great Spirit to the end that he might successfully commune with nature's little ghost people, unquote. So this philosophy was one that Russell's protege, Joe DeYoung, also followed. Walking in Russell's artistic and imaginative footsteps, Conway again quotes, Quote, he too had communed with the Great Spirit and received his medicine. He saw what his chief saw. Thus these two at Lake McDonald lived a visionary life of man and child in the wilderness, unquote. The sketch seen here, Joe Among the Little People, reflects the secondary world of enchantment that enveloped both artists. It shows DeYoung squatting in Indian fashion while sign talking. While the sketch fits within Russell's larger body of work that depicts figures from fictive worlds and historic tales, it is unusual in its observational character. Rather than drawn as a world unto itself, Russell merges these other-than-human figures with his lived reality. In this role as observer, then, Russell is both artist and anthropologist, and the sketch becomes a visual record of the curious interaction and communion between the young and the little ghost people. Like Russell's gnomes, the little ghost people, the above people, and the underwater people, and Nappy, were characters out of myth and folklore who lived among the animals and the spirits within the greater glacier region. Both Russell and DeYoung had a special affinity for Nappy. So in Blackfeet myth, Nappy, Nappa, or Old Man was chief over all the animal people and bird people. He spoke their language, including sign talk. He is seen as a creator god and a trickster character. In Indian wise stories, which carries Russell's illustrations, author Frank Bird Lindeman describes Nappy as, quote, the strangest character in Indian folklore. Sometimes appears as a god or a creator, and again as a fool, a thief, or a clown. He is a strange mixture of the fallible, human, and the powerful undergod. He made many mistakes, was seldom to be trusted, and he works and pranks run from the sublime to the ridiculous. This origin of Nappy is also discussed in the writings of George Bird Grinnell and James Willard Schurz, both of whom were friends of Russell, and which historian J. Vest draws particular attention to, noting that linguistically, Nappy is a compound word that joins nina, man, and the particle api, which is an expression of color, which connotates the early tint of morning light or dawn. So taken together, Nappy, or, quote, man the color of dawn, can be understood as the material embodiment of Blackfoot spirituality, reflecting, as Grinnell notes, that, quote, the original worship of the Blackfeet was the worship of light personified, unquote. We can view Russell's attraction to Nappy as an attraction to the philosophical underpinnings of Blackfoot religion and culture, an attraction to the very light and color that animated Russell's canvases during the period in the 1910s when it was at its most heightened. To refer back to Tolkien, fairy tales succeed by awakening desire, and in Russell, the desire manifested itself through his creative energies in the production of art and in the performance of Ah-Wa-Cous. So we can see that Russell as an artist was intimately connected to his sense of touch. But beyond the work of his hands, Russell's artistic and dramatic pursuits required the performance of his whole body. In becoming Ah-Wa-Cous, Russell engaged in a mimetic act that sought to mine his original model, the Plains Indian, for ways of being in and experiencing the world anew. Russell's own mimetic desire seemed to gravitate towards the sensuosity of that act of being similar, which is grounded in bodily perceptions, in gesture, voice, and bearing and movement, and in the tactile. His transition into Indian required not only a psychological shift, but a physical transformation. By wedding materiality to performance with the aid of costuming, makeup, artifacts, and props, Russell creates at once a sensuous and synesthetic, fully realized Indian persona, which you can see here in an illustrated letter. It's quite beautiful. So assuming the identity of a racialized other required Russell to use makeup to change his physical appearance. That's a great one, just of showing, again, Russell dressed as a woman and in both cases a squaw out in Bullhead Lodge with a fellow. And so, like you can see, just the generative landscape of Glacier giving birth to these great performances of his. Because Russell had these typical European phenotypic traits, he took pride in being described as a white Indian. He saw it as a compliment to his character, his philosophy on life, and his strong aquiline features. So he was even known to occasionally slip his picture of him as an Indian into a stack of stereographs, And so when his friends would go through them, he'd always sort of get a laugh or want them to, think that, oh, they're actually viewing a real Indian instead of Russell made up. And so someone who was played this trick commented, quote, "His wild disguise was perfect. Quite an actor, too, is he to impersonate an Indian in so lifelike a degree," unquote. So Russell also was shown as a Native American in a number of newspaper articles. And one reporter just describes him when he meets him, quote, "Silent as his old comrades of teepee and hunting ground, pigeon-toed like the horseman of the plains which he is, with high cheekbones and the searching gaze of a frontiersman and a hunter, Russell is as blond as a Viking. Otherwise, he bears a striking resemblance to old Chief Joseph, the famous warrior of the Northwest," unquote. So quite interesting in that regard. But in the 19th century, really interesting, is the use and choice of color in dress signaled the divergent tastes and the appearance between the civilized Europeans and the uncivilized indigenous peoples. In his 1810 treatise on color theory, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe noted, quote, "Savage nations, uneducated people, and children have a great predilection for vivid colors. People of refinement avoid vivid colors in their dress and the objects that are about them, and seem inclined to banish them altogether from their presence," unquote. So while Russell's everyday dress resembled these muted tones of polite society, his wardrobe also deviated from the norm by incorporating like the colorful center sash that you can see here. So Russell stood apart from many of his contemporaries in his affection for bright color, having once remarked to Frank Letterman's daughter, quote, "Men wear such drab clothes. Wish we could dress the way they used to in the old days. Bright colored coats with lace collars, knee breeches and shoes with big buckles on them," unquote. His signature look, the center mixed breed sash, his bold red splash of color sets him apart from many men of the era. For many people, bright colors close to their body were repulsive because of their association with indigenous people, who were deemed primitive and close to the state of nature. As anthropologist Michael Taussig argues, European and Anglo-American attitude towards color derived from, quote, "the Western experience of colonization and colored otherness," unquote. Thus, Russell's choice to embrace color on his body drew him closer in taste to people of indigenous cultures who largely preferred colorful garments and striking patterns. These negative associations with color and indigenous dress were also prevalent in the American West, especially during the early reservation period when U.S. government policy mandated that Native American assimilation. Recommendations by government agencies and boarding schools pushed for the adoption of civilized clothing to the detriment of traditional Native style. This noticeable loss was one that Russell lamented as he comments to Harry Stanford in a letter, quote, "The only real American don't use much style anymore. Once nature gave him anything he wanted. Now the agent gives him bib overalls and hooks his hand around the plow handles and tells him it's a good thing to push along," unquote. While atypical for his time, Russell's predilection for vivid hues reflected his attraction to this colored otherness, to primitivism, and to the philosophical belief that nature remained wild. For Russell, color became a bodily means of returning to tradition and to simpler times. As Ah-Wa-Cous, Russell could embody these ideas through the wearing of colorful Plains Indian garments. As his illustrated letter to Harry Stanford suggests, Russell understood the power that clothing could convey for the wearer. Quote, "The headdress is a good one. It is certainly a wild man's crest. I think our red brother stole his fashion from the animals and the birds he knew. He saw the stagecock dance and spread his tail feathers. That's where Mr. Injun got his dance bustle. He liked the war bonnet that the Canadian jay and kingfisher wore, so he made himself one," unquote. As described and illustrated by Russell here, this headdress is a vibrant reminder of the body in motion, loaded up with animals and color. It is a visual and gestural evocation of a kingfisher's rattled song and the strutting vitality of the sage-grouse's dance, set to myth and mimicked by the steps of a dancer. It is suggestive power and sympathetic magic that is irreproducible in modern manufactured form. So as witness and participant for Russell in religious ceremonies and powwows and cultural events, He took in these colorful traditional native clothing that were on special display and absorbed a new understanding of the body and its movement in Plains Indian dance, ritual, and activity. The artist's own colorful transformation into Ah-Wa-Cous required a dramatically different look, replete with its own set of clothing and signifiers. The first layer of color he added was to his skin. Theatrical makeup and grease paint were applied across his face and neck, deepening his fair complexion and darkening his ethnicity. The next layer of color was slipped over top his hair. Wigs made of black horsehair complemented his darkened skin, and simply styled, they hung in braids down the length of his chest and across his crown, or were twisted into top knots that rested on his forehead, a look that was popular among older Blackfeet men. And the final colors of layer were wrapped across his body, swathing him in garments numerous and varied, from the simple undyed muslin cloth to the bright wool patterns of cotton wood of the painted bison robe, finishing off the artist's look with the exotic accessories and the prop artifacts. Perhaps the most polished and recognized photograph of Russell in Indian attire is this image of him taken in a photograph studio in 1900, clothed in full regalia. Standing against a simple backdrop, Russell presents himself in three-quarter profile, wearing a serious expression, his cockeyed, split-bonnet headdress, beaded buckskin leather jacket, leggings, and lapped blanket around his waist, with streaks of paint across his cheeks. Peeking through the outfit is a white cotton shirt and a buckle belt, the only signifiers of his civilized dress. This image calls to mind the newspaper reporter's description of the artist from 1919, when he says, quote, "Long years among the Indians seem to have given his face the Indian characteristics, the Indian's set, unsmiling cast of countenance, the Indian's deep, furrowed lines, and steady, imperturbable look of the eyes. The Indian's smoothly brushed, evenly laid hair are his. His eyes are seldom in the present, and the same is true of his pictures," unquote. The photographs of Russell taken in costume provide useful windows through which to examine the appearance and the nature of his mimetic play. At a rudimentary level, Russell photographed himself and others dressed as Indians to help him visualize the figures in his paintings. To a large degree, Russell lacked live models to pose for his paintings. To substitute, he relied on the skills of a sculptor to create small, three-dimensional clay models on plaster that he then posed and lit to mimic the natural effects of light and shadow. Many of his photographs also acted as aid memoirs and were copied and given as mementos to friends, or in the case of Philip Goodwin, as we can see here, many of these photographs were traded between artists for the same purpose of getting unstuck in their creative process, as again, Russell suggests in the letter about posing again for one another. So Nancy and Charles dressed in native costume, posing inside their bedroom at their first home in Great Falls. They were taken around 1898 and are the earliest examples of Russell's use of personal photographs as a reference tool. In all but one, Russell is dressed in a simple breechcloth and straddles a saddle stand, striking poses that mimic the use of bow and arrow, likely used for the painting of a buffalo hunt, as you can see below. Later images taken of Russell in the front yard of the studio with Josie Wright, who was one of his native models, were likely shot for Russell's reference. Here again, Russell is dressed in an older Blackfoot style, sporting the top-on hairstyle, buckskin coat, wrapped in a chief's blanket in one set of images, and the other in an eagle feather turban with a capote jacket, so as to pair in costume again with Wright, who was half Blackfoot. However, unlike the action shots taken inside Russell's home, these images were called the stiff, formal poses struck in a 19th century portrait studio. They lack the camera's voyeuristic gaze that is present to a higher degree in images of Russell at Bullhead Lodge. It is in Bullhead Lodge, in this discursive space, that we witness Russell as an actor. Here he is bargaining for goods, hunting, reading animal tracks, and sign talking. While Russell only knew a few words of Blackfeet and Cree, he was a knowledgeable and habitual user of Native American Sign Language in conversation and also as a gesture of speech to convey emphasis or elicit clarity. As de Young scribe describes it, in Russell's capable hands, the language assumed a, quote, easy and windblown, quote, unquote, movement that took its cue from, quote, falling clouds, an eddying leaf, moving water, wood smoke, and the play of light and shadows of an open fire, as a sign talker, Russell was all Indian, unquote. In playing Indian, Russell's choice of costume was influenced at least partially by the landscape he inhabited. The forests and lakes and mountains of Glacier provided a dramatically different landscape for Russell than the plains and prairies of central Montana. The radical break in geography, coupled with the location's intended use as a summer retreat, helped to cultivate the character of Bullhead Lodge as a setting that encouraged freer movement, an open mind, and a willingness to experiment in staging opportunities for play. In this landscape, Russell dons his costume as a mixed-blood métis, the French-Canadian voyager, and an Indian close to nature, wrapped in a simple tan hide. It is in this latter costume that Russell's image as Ah-Wa-Cous was circulated during his lifetime and following his death. It is one of the many images taken here by photographer A.J. Theory, whom Nancy often hired for publicity purposes. And here too is a great picture of Russell with his friends in his backyard, fellow artists Joe Shirley and William Krieghoff. They're dressed in Indians, and he's a cowboy in that, but they're borrowing his clothing. And then on the right is Russell with the same men in Reservation. Built from a complex series of desires, the act of going native must also be interrogated in terms of its political and cultural impact. While one can inhabit the image of a racialized other, it is ultimately an impermanent identity, one that is just as comfortably worn as it is removed. As Sherry Kunger argues, the practice has served as an essential means of, quote, constructing white identities, naturalizing the conquest of Native peoples, and inscribing various power relations within American culture, unquote. Its widespread practice during the 19th century and early 20th century was not only initiated by individual enthusiasts, but also through youth organizations like the Woodcraft Indians and Campfire Girls, and adult fraternities such as the Improved Order of Red Men, which billed itself as a collective intent on preserving the American history as keepers of Native American customs. In itself, plain Indian could only act as a temporary moral salve to systemic and underlying cultural unease that was symptomatic of the anxiety induced by modernity and the historic record of brutality in the pursuit of both material wealth and moral superiority that built America. But Russell and those like him were not immune to the complicities of his age and in the racial privilege in perpetuating and enforcing the dominant power structure. Environments like Russell's Bullhead Lodge and Glacier Park offered the artist a space of retreat from modern life that encouraged and fed his imaginative play, as well as did his short visits to Indian reservations and powwows. While Russell was indeed cognizant and sympathetic to the struggles that the majority of Native Americans faced during his lifetime, he too fed into the mindset of them as a vanishing race. As one newspaper reporter commented, quote, concerning the Indians of the West, Mr. Russell is not very optimistic. He says they cannot stand civilization and they are slowly passing away. Under social restraint, they pine like wild animals in cages. The call of the wild is too strong with them to be resisted, unquote. For white America, the value of Native Americans and their culture lied in its historicity and in its past, not in its continuing present. Through the rule of experts, outsiders become the arbiters of Native American cultural authenticity and shaped the social narrative in history books and popular culture. Within this framework, Russell too acted as an arbiter of the authentic West and was complicit in maintaining the high value ascribed to Native American culture within this historic time period that correlated with their more traditional ways of life. But as to the photographs of Russell in Indian attire, and looking at them, it elicits within us sensations that are tied to our embodied experiences. The drape of garments, crunch of undergrowth, taut braids and headgear, and the weight of the beaded bags, belts, and weapons act for us as anchoring impressions. These tactile images make us aware, as a viewer, of his or her own body, as an organ of collective perceptions, lost in the textures, the senses, the flesh, the histories, and the meanings associated with our experience of place. Becoming embodied takes the abstract, the imagination, and the mental faculties and renders them solid, grounding them in the physical world of concrete experience, and in Russell's case, tangible art. The practice of encapsulating ideas, beliefs, and spirituality into things, is an old one, as we can see in the tradition of Europe and America and the icons in Christianity. Yet it only proves a temporary answer to the anxious dilemma of modernity, which sought to find a way to merge the heavenly with the earthly, science and nature with religion. So LaRue Smith, who is actually one of Charles Russell's little kids in his Indian club at the YMCA, had once noted, which I just love this quote, quote, "I have the suspicion Russell may have been as great an entertainer as he was a painter, with his talents telling stories. This is an imponderable, because his artwork lives on and his entertaining art died with him," unquote. In many ways, Charlie Russell became a cowboy because he could not live as an Indian. In a letter to old-time cowpuncher Teddy Abbott, Russell remarked, quote, "I remember one day we were looking at buffalo carcass and you said, 'Russ, I wish I was a Sioux Injun 100 years ago.' And I said, 'Me too, Ted, there's a pair of us.' I have often made that wish since, and if the buffalo could come back tomorrow, I wouldn't be slow in shedding a bridge clout. Like many I know, you're all Injun under the hide," unquote. Russell's longing to strip down to a breechcloth and ride freely across the western landscape is, as Philip Vine Deloyer describes, quote, "a longing for the utopian experience of being in between, of living a paradoxical moment in which absolute liberty coincided with the absolute. It was a quest for meaningful freedom and a contingent truth." And I would just like to leave you with one final word image to think about when you're thinking about Russell and Ah-Wa-Cous and Russell's art. And this statement comes from the brilliant Michael Taussig, so I'll just read it to you all. "In a fanciful mood, we might wonder whether these be connected. The colors displayed on the bodies of the men, on the one hand, and the semi-transparent dwelling places dotting the plains on the other. The teepee's quality of transparency being that from which all colors spring, and into which they die away. When people fancy, I want you to imagine what it might mean to sleep and shelter inside an animal this way, to be inside the buffalo in this crucible of transparent color. This would make a nice complement to having wild animals inside your body. During the day, let us say, they live inside you. At night, you live inside them. Such is color." Thank you.
We would now like to invite all of the speakers up to the stage, Byron and Emily and Holly. And we're going